Hello and welcome to this guide for assessors in using the Investor in Careers e-portfolio system. We're going to look at logging in, finding learning providers that you're linked to as an assessor, viewing their portfolio of evidence, and then using the portfolio to carry out the assessment and put together the assessment report. So we're here on the e-portfolio login screen. You have your username and password, and we log in here. When you are linked to a learning provider, and this is my assessor account we're looking at here, on your dashboard, and you can always navigate back to it from here, you will see the learning providers that you're linked to. I've created a test learning provider 2 here, and I will view this account now. This then presents us with the view of the learning provider's dashboard as they see it as well. So we can see we have the elements of commitment here, which is stage 1, and then organisation, delivery and evaluation. We can see that commitment is complete. Green tick meaning that the assessment activity linked to that has been completed. That stage is done by either CSW if they're directly linked or the sub-license holder. It results when it's been completed. You can see that their stage certificate is here, and this is something that the learning provider has access to as well. We also can view the assessment here that was previously completed. Before we do that, I just want to give you a bit more of a tour of things. You can see that all of the progress meters are at 100% and these 3 elements have been submitted. What that means is the learning provider has been through the process their side and has uploaded and linked and created evidence entries to support the requirements which is deemed as being essential evidence requirements. The progress meter looks to ensure that there is at least one evidence entry to support each of the essential requirements. So what we can see here by navigating is with the arrow here we can expand this, and this gives it a glance. This is the evidence requirements, essential first and then suggested. The grey box here is for linked evidence, and we can see the numbers of pieces of evidence here. Again, this is just for demonstration purposes, but if we wish to, we can click on this. It'll then show us what the learning provider has done and created. So they've linked this to C1.1 test evidence when it was done, the overview, and that's the explanation that we encourage them to give to explain what is that evidence there to do and demonstrate. The attachment and the document is here, and then it's telling us that they have linked it to support these key evidence requirements. So you can actually view this in progress. It doesn't wait for it to be submitted. As with the old portfolio system, if you use that, you can go in at any time and see what is available. It doesn't have to be submitted for you to be able to go and view things. It does need to be submitted before you can actually assess the stage. So what we can see here by clicking View Assessment is this is the report, and it's a growing report because it's only the commitment stage that's been done at this point. But the portfolio system auto-populates based on the information that is used to create the learning provider's account. These elements here are yet to be completed because this will be done when the overall assessment visit is carried out, and you will input information which will populate this area. But for those of you who are familiar with the old template and forms that we have been using, we're certainly looking to track and include who you've seen and interviewed. We're not looking for the names of students. We need to be vigilant around GDPR requirements, but we do want to know numbers of students by age, year or class groups. the overview of the learning provider as before, and strengths and areas development are particularly important, and that's nothing new. We retain that within this new model. The assessment grading recommendation will be done through the assessment activity on the portfolio, and I'll demo that in a minute. But what we can see here is this is the commitment stage assessment that's being carried out, and again it's just for demonstration purposes, so it is quite brief, but we can see these are the elements. It's been deemed to fully meet the requirements, and here we can see that the key evidence that as an assessor or as the licensed awarding body we have felt that demonstrates that they have met the requirements, and the comments are added in here. So this is a report that will grow because down here it says organisation, delivery and evaluation has not been assessed yet, but it's been submitted and it's there for us to do. So you can view this, it's printable, and also the learning provider can view this, but it's important to know and understand that any assessment activity that you undertake cannot be seen by the learning provider until it has been completed. Okay, so I'm going to go back now and we're going to look at not that page but this page. So this section for organisation has been submitted. If we wanted just to see what's going on, again we can do this. We can see, okay, they've got linked evidence. What is that evidence? But we're going to assess the stage now. So we're going to click here to assess the stage. The portfolio system is set up now to have two tabs. The first one presented to you is the assess criteria, and the second one here is the assessment grid. And this is where the core of the assessment activity is undertaken and your information and comments are inputted. Although it defaults to this, I strongly advise you to wait until you've completed the overall report before you assess the criteria. And this is a drag and drop exercise, but what we are indicating here is whether organisation 1.1 is deemed to either be making insufficient progress towards, making good progress towards, or fully meets the standard. So these are the three grading criteria that the National Quality and Careers Standard requires, and ultimately at the end you as an assessor are simply dragging and dropping potentially to fully meets or making good progress towards. You then save, and although it defaults to this, as I say, initially when you log in, go to assessment grid first. Okay, so what we've got here are the criteria, and we can view the criteria in full if we need to. So this one is looking to ensure that the governing body provides clear strategic advice, and also there's a CEIG policy in place. I've done this first section here just to demonstrate how it looks. So I've inputted a brief comment, and again this is just for demonstration purposes, and I've also linked or selected evidence that has been provided by the learning provider that I believe demonstrates how they are fulfilling this criteria. How I did that was by clicking on comment and select evidence, this button here, and this presents us with a comments field which you can type directly into, or you may wish to do offline and then copy and paste that information into. The other part of the activity here is to select the evidence that you as an assessor believe supports your assessment decision, and you can see down here that I've selected the CEIG policy and evidence they've provided around the policy review and planning. You can see that evidence again by clicking on the plus button, and it takes us straight to it. So again, this is showing us what they as the learning provider have added. Simple tick in the box, add your comments, either direct typing or copying and pasting for that particular outcome, and down the bottom is the save button. I strongly recommend that you certainly ensure potentially that you are making sure that you are working through this and you have what you want to do pre-prepared in some ways. It make it easier and quicker possibly to work offline. That's my recommendation. It was my recommendation with the old portfolio. And there's a template, an offline template you can use to do that, which I'll show you and you'll be provided with. Okay, so what we've done is we've assessed that criteria. If we then wanted to do 01.2, we wanted to remind ourselves, okay, so the policy clearly states how it will be managed, coordinated with defined roles and responsibilities, also looking at student entitlement. So there's some elements there that we would be wanting and needing to see within the evidence. So we click on that one. So what I've also sought to do is demonstrate how possibly a learning provider can be helpful and also possibly make things a little bit more complicated. So here we can see that actually this evidence has been named E1.5, indicating potentially that it's directed towards the evaluation at outcome 1.5. They've given it a clear title, they've given more information, they've added something, and they've linked it to specific aspects which they want it to support. That's helpful. These ones don't link to a specific outcome, but hopefully they've been directive in terms of the titles they give. The information we're providing to learning providers and encouraging them to do is to follow the process of being clear about the titles and being clear about, and the system makes them add something into the overview. And the more detail they give in this, so potentially they can actually write quite a bit of commentary into here, and that would be something else that we are encouraging learning providers to consider, because it will help you and them. Okay, for the purposes of this demonstration, I've gone ahead and completed the assessment activity for organisation. You can see that it's saying complete, and it's now possible that we can view the assessment. So as I said, this is a growing document. Initially we looked and saw that the commitment stage had been done. We now can see that organisation, based on the activities that I undertook for the demonstration, has been added here. So the comments that was input and the linked evidence. And for the purposes of this, I have indicated that I believe that these core criteria for organisation have been fully met. This then says when it was done, and although I added just a very brief bit of a text here, the overall comment and feedback that you give there will appear in this box. We can see that delivery and evaluation has not been assessed yet. It's important to understand at this point as well, and my recommendation is to you to consider, rather than completing one section fully in terms of marking it as fully complete, you progress with the full assessment process before completing each stage. The reason for that is that it will then finalise that particular element. It will also send notification to CSW or the sub-license holder, and it also send an email notification to the learning provider to say that this section has been completed. Now you may wish to go back in and edit and change that. It is possible to do that, but my recommendation would be to not mark the fully complete section until you're happy with your overall assessment. You can do it that way, and the system allows you to do it in this way, but my recommendation, as you probably would with completing your reports in an offline format, is you would complete the overall assessment and be happy with your overall assessment decision before marking it as fully complete. So for the purpose of this demonstration, again, I'm just going to then start to assess the stage for delivery, and the process is still the same, and it opens up and we can see that we have these criteria here marked as not assessed. Again, I'm not going to complete that activity until I've inputted my comments and selected the evidence which I want to link to that particular outcome. So again, I'm just going to check on what am I assessing here. Okay, so securing clearly identified appropriate and progressive learning behavioural outcomes. We know here that it's essential that there are written plans for the programs, and so we see what we need to be looking for, and that's then going to enable us to then go in and select our evidence linked to that. So here I'm going to sample and review that CEIG program. I'll have also spoken to key people at the assessment visit. They've also submitted schemes of work and resource examples here. So those are going to be core pieces of evidence that I'm going to use, and I'm going to be adding content and feedback here. When I'm happy with that, I'm going to save it. And again, this is all editable, so you may think, hold on, I want to need to go back and do something further here. That's fine. You just go back in and add and update and save. So I'm happy that D1.1 again has been assessed and is fully met. For the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to assess that criteria and I'm going to say yes, I'm happy that it fully meets, and I'm dragging that into there and I'm saving it. So now it's telling me there's still items waiting for assessment, but I've assessed just that one particular outcome for D1.1. I may decide that I've had enough for today and I'm going to leave it there, and that's fine, and I can come back to it and pick that up again whenever I want. Okay, so for the purposes of this recording, I've now gone ahead and inputted and added assessment for the delivery and evaluation stages. The assessment grid has been fully completed, and the assessment criteria has been completed for delivery, and you can see for the purpose of this demonstration, finding that outcome 5 and 8 are deemed to be making good progress to fully meeting the standard, whereas the remaining factors are fully meeting the standard. So we can complete the assessment when we're ready, and the same with the evaluation aspect. If at this point not happy about it or want to change it, that's still possible. You can still comment and you can still move things around if need be. So we can move this back if we wish, pick it up and move it. But at the point that you are happy, this complete assessment button will be ticked. Then it gives the opportunity for the overall comment and feedback for the delivery element of this. So this is going to be test input for the purposes here, and I'm approving this assessment decision, and it's my assessment decision. At this point it's saying delivery is complete, the assessment is available to view now, and it also says that an email has been sent to the test learning provider to say that delivery assessment has been completed via the ePortfolio. Now this is not to say that this is the final assessment decision. It could be changed if required. through the quality assurance process, but it is a notification, and you as the assessor have completed this assessment activity. So we're now at a point that all the elements of the assessment process via the portfolio system have been marked as complete down here. We've now got this section here, all stages complete. As marked as completed, the assessor will now need to complete the assessment. So we click here, and this is the final section. So as we saw on the growing report, that's already been pre-populated, but this is where, as the assessor, you would input the name of the staff that you interviewed, students, the overview, and importantly the strengths and areas for development. And we've got the final overall grading recommendation. Now, with regards to the areas for development, for the purpose of this demonstration one, I marked that outcome 5 and 8 were making good progress towards. Under that, the Quality and Careers Standard Assessment Guidelines and Criteria, that would mean the overall assessment grading is making good progress towards. We would need, within this areas for development, to accurately record the reasons why, but also what is going to be required for that learning provider to meet those requirements. So for instance, for outcome 5 with employers, potentially not all students were having one meaningful encounter. Well, that would be the requirement, and in terms of how that was being met, the school in their improvement or development plan may already be addressing that and recognising that. The same with the outcome 8 personal guidance, what the requirement will be in order to meet it. The final assessment grading recommendation then, for the purposes here, will be making good progress. It's got my name, and the final complete assessment will happen when this has been completed. So at this point we're ready to complete the assessment, which is done. So gives the date, the assessment grading recommendation. We can now view the overall full assessment, and there are certificates available here. So we can see that this is grown from commitment through to organisation, delivery, and evaluation. So this report can be printed. At this point as well, we will also be able to look and review the report from a QA perspective, and if there was any changes that were felt to be made, then that could be done. We've got the overall and the strengths and areas for development here. This report will now sit within the learning provider's account as well. I hope this recording has been helpful, and you'll be able to use the portfolio system as a tool to help us streamline and automate as much as possible the assessment process in terms of report and certification generation. Thank you. The final thing to make you aware of and confirm to you is that we're in the assessor's element here, so an assessor can view obviously the assessment, and the certificates are available here, and these are auto generated, but CSW Group or the sub-license holder will also communicate with the learning provider to send them a copy of their report, and also a congratulations letter and certification and logos, as we have done in the past as part of that formal award process.